Hey, hello, my name is Scott Lancaster, and I am one of the research and instruction librarians here at Waters Library. And I'm going to show you, just acquaint you with some of the things that are available in the library, both electronic as well as a few things that are actually physically in the building. And then I'll show you the databases and how to access those. I'm going to share my screen to show. I have a few slides to go through. We actually do have a physical library building, although many are probably the majority of our collection now is digital. And there are study spaces here in the building that you can use, as well as librarians that you can consult. And there's a computer lab on the first and second floor. And the library is open Sunday through Thursday till 1 a.m. And in fact, I'm leaving right after this class and I'm coming back at 9 p.m. and I'll be working till 1 a.m. here. So if you come in with any questions tonight, I can help you. On the first floor, we have a computer lab, and there are printers where you can print documents. And even if you come to the library and you end up with a print book or print resource, you're going to identify it through the computer because our catalog system is electronic. So, and that's what I'll show you, how to find a book or how to find an article. You can either use your own laptop or your phone or a tablet, or you can use one of the computers that are here in the library. We have 2 Kick scanners, which you can use to scan pages from books or documents, notes, even pictures that you might want to have a copy of. It's an overhead scanner. It's very easy to use, like especially with a book. You just turn the pages and push the button, and it will save files as PDF documents or image files like JPEG or PNG, or audio files. It will even do an audio file, assuming the text is legible enough for it to decipher it. And you save it either on a flash drive, or you email it to yourself, or you upload it to a cloud service. I always save it on a flash drive, but you can, and somebody downstairs will help you if you need help to use it. We have multiple study rooms throughout the library. There actually is one on the first floor that we call the Zoom room, where if you have to do a Zoom meeting, you can reserve that room. The one that's pictured here is an individual study room. There are rooms that will take 2 to 4 people and up to 12 or 15 people. Some of the rooms have projectors in them, and some of them have whiteboards. Some of them are like full rooms, actual rooms, and there's a few of them that are more like cubicles that don't have a full wall that goes up to the ceiling. I'll show you how to reserve a room when we look at the website. Just to go over some of the basics of research, I know that you all are undoubtedly familiar with how to find something on Google or some other search engine that you use to look for the internet. And the searching in the library databases or the catalog is very similar to that. But one of the things to keep in mind is that the more you can narrow your topic down to something specific, the better, because you're going to get more focused results. For instance, if you are, if you just are told you need to do research on pollution, well, if you can identify the more specific you can identify the kind of pollution, the better. I mean, and you may start out just looking up, like in an online encyclopedia or something, pollution, just to figure out what are the types of pollution I might research. Or if you're discussing it in class, you will think about what was talked about in class, and maybe it was air pollution. That's what you find interesting. And then, but it's actually the causes of air pollution. You could either use the cause, or it could be cleaning up the air pollution, but you're wanting to research the cause of it. And then finally, this very specific topic, the effects of aerosol products on air pollution. So that is a really good narrowed down research topic. And so, and librarians can help you with that. If you need help, we try to do it without leading you. We try to just guide you in figuring it out for yourself, because your research needs and interests are going to be different than mine. And if you have the flexibility to pick a topic that you're really interested in, then that's better, because you're gonna first know a lot more about it. You're going to be motivated to work harder, and you hope you might learn something that then you can bring back into your immediate life and goals. So try to pick something you're interested in. These are some examples of some search queries, because we like to say, if somebody just comes in and says, I want to research about pollution, well, if you can turn it into a question, that's better to sort of focus your mind on it. So these are just some examples of how has global warming affected cattle farming? How has the COVID-19 pandemic affected homelessness? Because anything with COVID-19 is a big research topic now. Or how were African Americans in Texas participating in the US Civil War? So you form these into questions, but then what you need to take to the database are the keywords. Actually, Google will do what we call natural language searching, where I can type this question in to Google, and I will get, and it will understand what I mean. It's been designed or programmed to understand natural language, just as if you were talking to another person. The databases work far better if you don't use natural language, but only use the keywords, like global warming, cattle farming, COVID-19, homelessness, or African American Civil War, Texas. And you put them together with Boolean operators. And actually, if you've learned how to do advanced searching in Google, Google also uses Boolean operators. The main ones that we use are and, or, and not. And it's sort of like math. That's why they call them Boolean operators. And these Venn diagrams sort of illustrate what they do. Each circle here represents the items in a database that have these particular keywords or key phrases in them. And it's going to be searching every item, whether it's a book or an article, will have metadata where somebody has programmed in the title of the article or book, the author. If it's an article, it will have the name of the journal and all of the citation information, like the year and the volume, the issue, the page number. And then it will often have an abstract. And then it will also have subject terms, which usually the database will assign to that. Somebody will say, oh, this article is about air pollution, or it's about William Shakespeare. And so when you're searching, you're looking in all of those fields. And when you put things together with and, you make your results smaller, because we've got everything with psychotherapy and everything with eating disorder. But we're only getting the smaller number of results that have both things in it. Notice here, I put quotation marks around eating disorder because I want the exact phrase. If you don't put it in quotation marks, it's going to treat it like psychotherapy and eating and disorder. And so you will have things that where eating is in one place and disorder is in another. But those are common words, but together they mean something very specific. So when you have a phrase that, it's really a good idea to put it in quotation marks, because then you're going to just get those words in that order. And that works in Google as well, to put them in quotation marks. And or is going to make your results bigger, because in this case, we've got everything that has social isolation in it, everything that has loneliness in it, as well as those items that have both in it. This is really useful when you've got synonyms or different ways of terming something. Like if we were looking at binge drinking at colleges, then you recognize that you might have college or university or higher education, or whatever the other terms are for that. And it's a good idea when you start out your research to be aware of the other ways of describing or terming an idea that you've come up with. There probably is a more medical term for eating disorder. And of course, and certainly there's multiple, there will be like slang terms for things. There will be common terms, medical terms. The more you're aware of those terms, the better you can expand your searches if you have to. And you can put more than two things together in a search and come up with a very focused result. Like now I've got articles that are about children and the pandemic and mental health. So how has the pandemic affected the mental health of children? But remember that the more terms you add with an and, the smaller your results get. And eventually you may find that you've made it so specific that there's nothing, or there may just be one or two. And maybe you would have to go back and take some of the terms out. There's also types of sources that we'll go over. There's three main types. You will often be told in perhaps one of your later classes, you need primary sources for this project. A primary source is an immediate firsthand account of something. It could be a document in history like the Declaration of Independence, or if you're doing a study of Shakespeare's Hamlet, it would be the text of Hamlet. It could be survey data. There's TEA, the Texas Education Agency, has all the testing data from, it doesn't have kids' names on it or something, but all of the data about testing is available to be downloaded in some form and used by researchers. Well, that is a primary source. Or it could be the reports of original research, mostly in the natural sciences. There's been a lot of things come out that you might have seen referenced about COVID-19 and different treatments and causes and stuff, and they're in medical journals. And if they are reporting about a study, if they say we took 100 patients and we gave them such and such a treatment for COVID-19, and this is the result we have. If they're reporting research they actually did, that is primary source. you also, newspaper accounts can be primary sources. In the very beginning of COVID, I mean, it was it was March 2 years ago when we first shut down. For within a few weeks, we had people, I had people contacting me saying, I want information about the pandemic and how it's affecting people. And I'm like, well, it's only really been going on 2 or 3 weeks. So we're not going to have any peer-reviewed things about it. You might do peer-reviewed or research on earlier pandemics and then extrapolate on how that could affect us, but we're not going to have anything yet on the present situation. So in their case, they had to go to newspapers to get primary sources, and it would be like somebody on the street in New York, and they're reporting about the number of people that are in the hospital or the number of deaths or something like that, where they're like actually there seeing it and they're reporting on it. And now that stuff is probably filtered down to be in peer-reviewed research. Secondary sources are going to be books, articles, and reports that are based on the primary sources, like peer-reviewed articles or scholarly books. So the articles that we're reading now that are sort of pulling together all of the data about COVID-19 and drawing some kind of conclusion about what's the best treatment for it or whatever, those are going to be secondary sources. And there'll also be scholarly books that can be used as secondary sources. Both of those are going to be, both primary and secondary sources will be good things to use for your research projects that you're going to do. And I think most projects will take both, although I think sometimes the instructor stipulates, I want 5 primary sources in that thing. And then you can have however many secondary, but they want you to learn to rely or to be able to find and understand how to use primary sources. And then the last one are tertiary sources. These are more what I think of as reference items, although certainly I think I would classify a dictionary in this. And if you might be giving a definition of something in your research, and in that case, if that's appropriate, then use it. But more than likely, tertiary sources are going to be either things you're using for background research, just to familiarize yourself with what your topic is, or tertiary sources will point you to primary or secondary sources. The textbook that you will be using in a class is a tertiary source. Tertiary sources are usually written for the general reader. And this would include encyclopedias and the kind of general encyclopedias like Encyclopedia Britannica, as well as subject-specific encyclopedias like Encyclopedia of Philosophy. And also mass market publications like just popular magazines that you read will be in tertiary sources. I think also I would include Wikipedia as a tertiary source. I would not ever probably cite Wikipedia in a paper unless I was writing something that had to do with Wikipedia. But I've used Wikipedia a lot to point me to sources, because they're really good now about having the articles have references at the end. And in fact, there's a lot of librarians I know who work on editing Wikipedia articles. One of the librarians that we used to have here in archives, you have to do an internship when you get a Master's of Library Science. And he did his internship at the Gerald Ford Presidential Library. And his thing was he was the Wikipedian in residence there. And he went through all of he kept looking every day, all the Wikipedia articles about Gerald Ford or anything to do with the time Gerald Ford was president. And he made sure they were all accurate, that they were updated, that they were referenced. So it's good as a tertiary source to just kind of familiarize yourself with a topic. Peer review, you will also undoubtedly be told, get peer-reviewed articles for this research. And a peer review is not unlike what happens when you take a paper to the writing center, or sometimes when you're in a class, I don't know if y'all do this, where you will get with another classmate and you will read each other's papers and give feedback, about, the purpose of the assignment and how well did what this person wrote fit that assignment, and then how well is it written? What is it? What are the strong points? What needs to be improved on it? That's peer review. Academic peer review is when a researcher in any field has an idea and writes about it and wants to publish it, usually because most of the faculty here, certainly the tenure track faculty, they need to publish in peer-reviewed journals as part of their job. So they write, they research, they write, they find a journal that publishes in that field, and they submit it to the editor of that journal. The editor of that journal finds a number of other people who are so-called experts or knowledgeable in that field, and they read through it, and they decide, is this well written? Is it accurate? Is it something that people will be interested in now? Because in academia, sort of what people talk about and what they're interested in, kind of goes from one thing to another. And so that, and certainly with a journal, you want to publish something that people are talking about now, that they're going to want to read now, because when it's basically like a conversation in print, and people, you just want interest in it. So those people, the peer reviewers will read it and decide, they'll evaluate it to some extent, either pass it on and say, yes, let's publish it, or more often than not, they will send it back and hopefully not just say, no, we don't want it at all, but they will say, it's okay, but you look at this, and this, you need to, maybe do a little bit more research in this area. They give them feedback to improve it. And then then the writer will improve it, send it back. And it basically then gets an A from the journal by being published. And you are asked to look at peer-reviewed articles because it is something that has gone through this rigorous evaluation process. And you can be assured that it is, at least by the experts in that field, it's considered to be good, accurate, reliable. When we search in the library resources, there's basically two paths we can go down. Although we can, in one search, we can actually begin by searching in both of them. But the first one is the catalog, which is the electronic counterpart to what used to be a card catalog, where when I started in university, libraries had little drawers of cards that identified all of the items in the library. And you had a subject card, well, usually more than one subject, because a book can usually be classified under more than one subject. And you had an author card and you had a title card. As you can imagine, it's much easier to search in a database or the digital format than to try to find the one card in thousands and thousands that is your item. And so we have an electronic catalog. And what is in the catalog are items that have been selected specifically by librarians here to be in our collection, either because we acquaint ourselves with what the departments are teaching, and we know the books that are being published, and we get those, or faculty in various departments will send us a request and say, get this book. You know, my students need it, or I need it. So those are things selected specifically for this library. More often than not, they're going to be electronic now. So aside from the catalog, there's also a number of databases. We have over 300, and these are services that we subscribe to. They are collections that are put together by other people, other companies. Our biggest database providers are called EBSCO and ProQuest. These will include journal articles, book chapters, streaming video, there's audio, newspaper articles, magazine articles, images as well. So you've got the databases and you've got the catalog, but we have a federated search engine that we call OneSearch that will actually search both of them at the same time. So you can either go into the catalog, or you can go in one of our 340 something databases, or you can start in OneSearch and search them all. And this is what OneSearch looks like. We'll look at it in a minute. Also, you should be familiar with D2L. I guess even face-to-face classes often have the D2L thing. We have 2 tutorials that are in D2L that should show up on all of your menus when you pull that down. They won't necessarily be at the top like they are with mine, but there's a beginning research and an advanced research. So if you want more information with those, you can use those. Sometimes instructors assign classes to go through them. There's quizzes that are in them that I think they're fairly easy to use if you pay attention. And then these are just some resources I want to look at in the, now I'll quit sharing because we're going to look at those on the library homepage. So you see the library homepage. There should be a link to the library homepage on the university homepage. And I think there's one in D2L as well. But you might also just remember to put /library after the edu in the university URL. Before we look at OneSearch, Ask a Librarian is a way that you can send us a message with a question that you might have. You can email any of us directly, and I'll show you before we end how you can find mine and other librarians' email. But if you don't really care who answers, or you don't know, you can't remember any of us, you can click on Ask a Librarian. You can type your question in here. It can be as long as you want. And the things with the asterisk have got to have something in them. And then you click submit your question. And if it's between 8 and 5, Monday through Friday, you should get an answer in less than 2 hours, hopefully. In many cases, like right away, you'll get an answer. If it's at night, then you would get an answer sometime after 8 a.m. the next morning, because somebody will sign into it 8 a.m. If somebody is monitoring chat, then because we also have chat, there would be a little box that's here on the right that says chat with us. And if you click on that, it will open up, pop up a little box where you're going to be chatting. I think it asks you to put a question in first. So you type in something and then click submit, and then it alerts us that, and somebody, it's like monitoring chat. When I do it, I get a little beep that says somebody's there. So it's like live interaction with somebody. And if we have, I can send screenshots to you, or if I have to, I think I've sent a Zoom link when it's something, you know, that I really want to just explain face to face with someone. But nobody's monitoring chat now because I'm supposed to be and I'm talking to you. So that's Ask a Librarian in chat, and then book a study room. Remember I told you there's study rooms all throughout the library. They're very popular to use. If you click on that, it'll take you to this, and then you would pick the room that you want. And I think you can book it, I don't know how far in advance, at least to the end of the semester. And you can book it for it's 4 hours, 4 hours at a time. And these ones that are in red, somebody else has booked them. So any of the green ones, wherever you click, it's going to give you the next 4 hours of that, or until somebody else has it booked, if it's less than that. You can click over here on any of these to get more information about the room. These are those little rooms like I had a picture of, and then there's group study rooms that have various capacities listed here. Although, I mean, like this capacity 6, you might could get, you know, an extra person in that. I don't think that's necessarily like a fire enforced thing, but that's just based on what we think could fit in there. Presentation study rooms have projectors mounted on the ceiling, so you could hook a laptop up to them if you wanted to be working on something with a group. And then the specialized rooms on the first floor for Zoom. And even though that said book a study space, this is also where you find book equipment. If you click on that, you'll see we have cameras, digital presenters and recorders, and there's microphones, projectors and screens. But the thing that you're most likely going to be wanting are one of the cameras or a microphone, or but any of these can be reserved. And I think if you click on it, yeah, then you can like get details about what they do. And all of these cameras, even these that are not specifically called camcorders, they will all do, you know, video if you want. So you book those the same way you book a room. Now let's look at OneSearch. I will. Well, let's just try this one, children and pandemic and mental health. Let's see, I must. And if I didn't put and in between those words, it would insert that. It assumes you mean and if you don't have anything. So I got 134,000 results, which is way more than what I want to look through. But over here on the left, you can filter your results. And all of the databases, as well as this OneSearch, will have on the left a way to filter down your results. So I quite often will do a search that I know is going to bring me back a lot of results, but I will know that I'm going to be able to filter it down over here. So the primary thing that you might want to have is either a book or an article. If you want a book, I mean, if you want an article, you would click on peer-reviewed journal. If you wanted a book, it's under resource type. You would pick either book or book chapter. Notice that all of these, when I hover over it, I get a box in front and a red box at the end. If I want to include the item, I click on in this open box on the left. If I want to exclude it, then I click on this red box on the right. But let's say we want peer-reviewed journals. So I'm going to click here and then apply filters. So from 134,000, I'm down to 26,000. Probably a lot of those would have been like newspaper articles or magazine articles that I've cut out. Even if I couldn't narrow this down anymore, all of the searches are going to have a default sort by relevance. So it doesn't hurt if you can't figure out how to focus it down anymore. Look through the first 20 or 30, just look at the titles to see if any of them match up with what you want. However, I'm going to move to publication date. And notice this goes back to 1951. Because COVID-19 was not the first pandemic. This is something they've been writing about for years. And I want things that are just about the present thing. So I'm going to say 2020 to 2022. So now I'm down to 22,000. I think I'm going to. And then most of these are going to be available online because, but there may be a few that aren't. So I could also narrow down to just available online. We can get anything through interlibrary loan, but oh, somebody's on chat now, so you could click here and get chat. The next thing I would look at is subject, because 22,000 still a lot. If I go to subject, these are all the, the subject areas. And sometimes I see things here that I didn't really think of. It'll be some avenue of it that I didn't think about. But, and you can like, I'll pick female. So studies just of women. And you can keep narrowing down, it's going to keep giving you a smaller and smaller result. Maybe I want just young women. And, and eventually you'll get to, where you're going to start looking at the articles themselves. This is the short record that you see. It'll have the title, author, and citation information. And I usually, will just run through these very quickly and glance at them. But then if you click on the title, it'll open up the extended record that will show you all of the subject terms associated with it, as well as an abstract. And so that is one search. Just quickly, because I know our time is running out, you can look up any of the specific databases. And you're often, like if you're in a history class, you might be told use this database. Well, say we have 342 databases, you will find them all here listed. You could pick ones that are just in a specific subject area if you want. And they search the same way as what OneSearch does. You just put in the keywords. Remember that the databases do not recognize close misspellings like Google does. You know, if you miss a letter or two, Google will say, did you mean so-and-so, and it will give you results. The databases will just say 0 if you misspell something. So if you get 0 results, first thing to do, make sure you spell things properly. And then finally, just scroll down to the bottom and you'll see all of us that work here in the library. And if you click on anyone's name, you'll see our email address and phone number. And I think that's all I'll cover. Any questions? Well, when you do have an assignment, you will have questions, you know, and so by all means, contact one of us and we'll be happy to work with you.
All right. So